Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Meena Dayak, and I am the Executive Vice President at Open Minds. I am going to serve as your moderator today. I am not your social media expert, but I am simply here to welcome you all to this weekly Executive Web Forum and to introduce my colleague, Rob Hickernell, who will be talking to you about social media that puts you in the community virtually. And given Rob's extensive experience and all the wonderful work that he does for us here at Open Minds, I am really looking forward to this session and to his sharing all his wisdom with us. Just a little bit about Rob before we go too much further down the line. So Rob brings over 20 years of experience in website development and maintenance, digital marketing and reporting, and data analytics to the Open Minds team. And he has done some fabulous projects for us here on website optimization and converting digital leads into actual acquisition and retention. So before he came to Open Minds, Rob served as a digital marketing and strategy consultant for Live Oak Associates. And in this role, he was a consultant and advisor to digital business to business as well as business to consumer companies, and creating digital marketing strategies for them and using digital marketing to tackle their toughest business challenges. And before he came to Live Oak, Rob was the vice president of search for AOL. Always reminds me of the You've Got Mail. But we are just really pleased to have Rob as part of our team. And as I mentioned, he is going to talk to you today about how social media is an essential component, not just a PR component for your organization, but pretty essential to survival in these digital days that we are living in. And he has, I know, a bunch of strategies and tactics that will help you achieve real success through your social media endeavors. And before I hand it off to Rob, just want to remind you, at any point during today's session, you can use the little question box that's on the right of your screen to send a question into us. You can share a comment, you can ask a question, and once Rob is done with his presentation, it takes about 40 to 45 minutes, we invite you to actually, we will be happy to unmute you if you have a question, so you can directly ask Rob, or you can text us and we will ask on your behalf. But I would encourage you to really take advantage of this time. This is one of your benefits as an elite member of the Open Minds Circle. Rob will be on the line for as long as it takes to talk to you, to discuss your social media challenges, and you can really tell him what's on your mind and he will help you find a solution. So you are welcome to stay and chat with Rob after the presentation is done. And we are also recording today's presentation, so both Rob's slide deck as well as a video recording of this entire session will be posted on our website and you can access it there. So again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Rob, for making the time. I will hand it off to you now.
Great, thank you, Meena. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody tuning in today. So today we're going to go through, again, it's the third in this series of going virtual for revenue generation. So Tim Snyder had kicked it off with getting referral sources and finding you, and kind of an intro to all of these in-depth seminars that are now following. So David Forbes last month did an in-depth dive on how to set up your website to get referral leads in. I'm taking on the social media today, and then in early September we'll do search engine optimization, and then in October we'll look at the Americans with Disabilities Act and what that means for your website to make sure that everybody can find you. So today we're going to talk about social media. And our agenda, we're going to talk about understanding why a successful crisis management strategy begins with going virtual. We're going to move into kind of looking at the best practices of how to build a social blueprint based on best practices in the industry, and then combining them with how to meet your goals to achieve what you need to achieve. We'll look at some deep dives into what some brands are doing on the top social media platforms for driving traffic and engagement. That's where we'll actually spend most of our time, looking at what some brands are doing and giving you guys some ideas about what you could do. And then I did want to cover briefly, it's not all roses. you do have to pay close attention to reputation management and some pitfalls and traps to avoid for your brand. And so we'll go into those as well, so you're aware and can kind of think of those things as you go through your social media strategy. So to get started, wanted to really start jumping into understanding kind of why social media is so important, why being online is so important. So just the massive scale of the internet and social media, 3.9 billion users across the world. The stats go up every year, and they're impressive, and they shift and they change in how we access the internet. And so it was desktop, now it's mobile. So the phones, there's all kind of different devices coming out every year, different ways that we're engaging and interacting with the internet. But the thing that has stayed the same is it is these platforms, these internet platforms, social media platforms, even search platforms that continue to grow and gain popularity, and as a way for people to communicate, share ideas, share their life stories, share news events, message each other, really everything. 79% of the U.S. population has a social media profile. That's a huge stat. That's only growing as we continue to go in and into the future. Digital buying, everything is happening online, and everything that is online is wrapped up in also in social media. So it used to be, well, you have a website, you have your presence, you might sell some things, but more and more people are looking for brands in social media. They're looking to buy things from influencers on social media, advertisements on social media. Everything is rolling into social media. So it's really becoming more and more important every year to have your presence in social media and on the internet. And for our industry in particular, healthcare has joined this revolution of the internet. So there's a lot of statistics out there. One of the ones that I wanted to highlight here on the right side of the screen, healthcare providers spent $2.84 billion on digital ads in 2018, 13% increase in spend from 2017. The general internet is not growing that fast anymore. So healthcare is growing faster than the internet itself, as spend is slowing overall, because it's harder, the growth rate of spend is slowing, as it's harder to continue to grow 20-30% every year on top of year over year over year. But healthcare is growing, and so the average cost of a lead for healthcare is $286. So healthcare marketers are paying more and more for every lead with the increase of digital ad spend. A lot of trends go into why is this such an important thing, and really I'm talking in general digital marketing here, but it all relates back, you can relate it all back to social media as well. So from a video perspective, video is huge online right now. The social media platforms are rewarding video. Their algorithms are now built to boost posts that have video in them. So there's a lot more prevalence of video being launched in social media. Big data, lots and lots of data is generated by clicks and by what you do and how you engage and where you engage in the time of day and the day of week and the time of year, and it goes in to help optimize advertisers and optimize brands to help really cater towards consumers, both in the B2C and in the B2B world. And that data just continues to grow, and it piles on top of each other, and it makes things smarter and smarter as people can dig into the data and find out how best to optimize experiences. The patient experience. There's a lot of things going on in technology now to make the patient experience smoother. So it's collecting data about the patient experience. It's using mobile apps to allow for a more convenient patient experience. So a lot of things in digital continue to go through transformation. Tools for patients, growth of telemedicine, native advertising. Native advertising is ads, basically, they don't look like ads. Ads that are on a platform, whether it be a website or an app, mobile app, that look like they're content ads, or they're content that you might click on, and they try to live natively inside of the website or the application that they're sitting in. So that's been on the rise. Content marketing, looking at different pieces of content, whether it's a webinar like this, or it's a downloadable article or a use case, and utilizing those sorts of tools to create demand. So the campaign would be, you would offer to a consumer a white paper or something, and you fill out your name and your email address, and that turns into a potential lead for that company. Millennials are shaping lots of things in the world now, and online is certainly probably one of the biggest things that they're shaping. And so how they've grown up with the internet, they've grown up with social media. They didn't learn it like a lot of us learned it as it was invented. They were born with it, and so they're natural to it, and they do things differently than we do, and that will only continue as they get more and more buying power going into the future. That will shape how social media and online advertising is done. And then finally, social media optimization and marketing. Really, increasingly, healthcare providers turning to social media channels to engage with current customers, find new customers, whether it be looking at sharing information with consumers, or turning that possible consumer or business into a lead to make a sale to. So there's a lot of things going on in healthcare that's kind of fueling all of this. A couple of big things: demographics, transparency, technology. This notion of health consumerism is really big right now, where there's a rise of a lot of different services, apps, websites, different things to really cater towards a kind of a digital type customer. And these apps and these services, and there's a lot of telehealth services out there that are contributing to this as well, and they all have a home on social media. So we're going to go into a few of them when we look at our examples of how that's happening. So why should you join the online revolution? It is now expected. I think I said earlier that it used to be that if you had a website and you were in search and you might have been in a directory, that was about all that you needed to worry about doing. Now it's expected. If you're not online, if you're not in social media, there's why aren't you? You're missing out on opportunities, at least to have a brand presence. So you can have your website would be your brand presence, www.mybusiness.com, and now you can have that brand presence on these platform URLs. So you can have facebook.com/myorganization.com, Twitter, .com/ your company name. So you could create yourself more of a brand presence out there by having profile pages and engaging with consumers out there, and that is now expected. And you should take time to make sure that your brand and your company is represented there. So when people do an online search, they have a better opportunity to find you. And we'll talk about search engine optimization on another example there. I'm sorry, in another webinar. So in the world that we're in now, with COVID-19 and a lot of the market disruption that's going on, there were different tipping points of consumer engagement and strategies to drive that consumer awareness. With everybody working from home, internet time has increased dramatically with everybody working from home. Time online and time at work from home is increasing. Most people are working 10+ hours a day when they might have been working 8+ hours a day. And all of that is generally online. So there is a lot of opportunity to engage with people in an increased number of hours during the day. So during this time, going virtual becomes even more important. And we call this the zero moment of truth. It's really when do you make that decision? Where do you make that decision that you're going to start engaging with a brand or going down the line to make a purchase or look for a recommendation? And that zero moment of truth is happening now at home, and it's happening online more and more and more. And I think that we should be prepared for more of the same as there's more and more teleworking. There's going to be more and more people working from home. The day is going to kind of shift together. You're probably going to be doing some things in your personal life and in your professional life all at the same time. You might have two computers open at the same time during the same day, and moving back and forth between each. So you as a consumer and you as a business person may be interacting with different social media outlets on different devices during the same day or in the same afternoon, in fact. So it becomes more and more important to make sure that your brand is there and in every place and every platform where consumers are. So here, just a little bit of looking at internet use growing during the pandemic, during the early days of the pandemic. Really massive growth in internet usage. And I think this is the virtual era is here to stay. I think a lot of companies are going to realize that they don't need as much office space as they needed before. And a lot of us are going to be working from home or remotely in another, in different ways than we were before. And that's going to change a lot of things. It's going to change, the way that Comcast and Verizon market to you at home. Now you're a business user at home. And so they're going to change the way that they market to people as well. So 84% of Americans researched healthcare providers. So again, these are just stats showing you the size and the breadth of this online virtual brand marketplace. So really a massive number of people are looking online for healthcare providers. And they're making purchases, and they're making decisions, and they're making appointments, and they're selecting doctors, all of this online. And of course, all of this online activity, social media, ratings and reviews, search engines, extremely important. So we're going to dive in here today into social media because social media is driving a very large chunk of the activity coming in to all of these different platforms. So again, the importance of your audience, what your audience expects to learn about you online. On your website, you need to be able to talk about comparing costs. You need to talk about your quality of care. You need to be talking about ratings and reviews and what do patients say about you. Reputation. All of this is going to, when you have your social media presence, all of this is going to factor into kind of what you post, how you post, when you post, and how you respond to people when they give comments and ratings and reviews. So I want to touch on the next section here after we've kind of gone through some of the numbers and why is it important to be online and why is it important to have a social media strategy because the growth of all of these platforms is astronomical. Really want to take a look at some best practices so that we can help kind of establish what you want to do from your goals of whether it's brand awareness, whether it's user engagement, it's sales, it's developing a relationship, or it might be providing information out to a target audience. How do we use social media to best meet your goals? So by focusing on your social media efforts, you want to start with the channels that are most important to your target audience, and we'll go over a lot of these channels that are there and specific channels, and we'll look at those. The big four are LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and then we'll talk about a few other up and coming ones. One extremely large one that is much more consumer oriented and much more aimed at a younger audience we'll talk about, but just briefly, here, as it's not as big in healthcare right now. But you want to definitely curate each channel's messaging to the priority audience. So LinkedIn messaging is going to be different than Facebook messaging. That might be different than Twitter messaging. But it's important to be in all of those channels. But you might message differently, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Definitely make sure that you make it convenient and easy for your customers and prospects to get critical information. So just one click away. So it'll get into posting strategy when you create a post on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook. In order, when you include the website link in that post, you want to make sure that you're driving that person to click into your website so they find the information that they want right away, as opposed to clicking several times. And it's a fine line to walk between being promotional and not. So the 80-20 rule, don't let more than 20% of your posts be straight promotional. So there's a lot of brand awareness type of opportunities, engaging with your audience, getting them to follow your information, educating them, making them smarter, making them a more educated consumer, and all of those kind of brand messages will help ultimately bring in the promotional dollars that you want to get out of your audience. I pulled this. This is January 2020, so it's pretty fresh data. Downloads in the major app stores. So this is mobile oriented phones and tablets. And you can see the number one across all three major, or actually all two major app stores is TikTok. And so while I'm not going to dive deep into TikTok because it is mainly a consumer oriented, it's a video, 30-second at max, I think, video social media platform that is very, very popular internationally. And these are worldwide app downloads, and becoming more and more popular in the US amongst generally teenagers and folks in their 20s. However, there are increasing signs that brands are starting to pay attention to experimenting here. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Facebook and Instagram, they are the same company. Facebook owns Instagram, but they have little different marketing tactics and a little bit different audience bases, and so we'll go over those. And we'll talk about Twitter, and we'll also talk about LinkedIn, not on this list, but LinkedIn extremely important in a business-to-business setting. So just want to give you a taste here of these top apps that are downloaded in social media. Overall, best practices for social media. Learn about everything you can about your audience. So you're going to target an audience. We'll talk about targeting inside of these platforms in a few minutes. But you really want to know what makes them tick, what is going to resonate with that audience, so that when you're writing posts, you're writing to your audience. You'll get a lot more engagement out of those posts if you know your audience. Choose which networks to use and which to ignore. So as we just spoke about, the TikTok might not be the age group that you're looking at, and LinkedIn might be more of the place that you want, because you're really selling a business-to-business type of product or service. So you really want to choose which networks to use, and that might also get into which networks that you have different strategies for. So you might have a general brand awareness campaign and strategy for Facebook, and have a brand presence and establish that beachhead for your brand in Facebook. But you might put more promotional effort into your LinkedIn to attract business professionals and try to make inroads to try to turn connections into sales leads. So choose which networks to use, which to ignore. Have a plan, set goals, conduct audits, and watch the metrics. So knowing what you want out of social media, setting some goals of how many followers you want, how many comments you want, and conduct audits and watch the metrics so that you can measure, is your plan working? Are you able to meet your goals? Were your goals realistic? Should you adjust them? Are you spending too much time in social media? Are you spending not enough time in social media? All of this will be, is monitorable through the metrics that these platforms allow you to look at, who's engaging with your brand, how often they're engaging with your brand. Number 4, keep an eye on the competition, but don't obsess over the competition. You should know what they're doing and see how they're doing, but be unique. The online world is not so kind to copycats, and you can get called out, and trolls will come and kind of badmouth you. Keep an eye on what your competition is doing and try to learn from them and expand on things that they might be doing, as opposed to kind of copying what they're doing. But don't obsess over it. But you should know who your competition is, and you can even target them and their followers to also follow you. We'll get into that in the targeting options of these networks as well. 5, monitor conversations relevant to your industry. 6, establish a voice and tone for social media. So this is getting into knowing your audience as well. We kind of talked a little bit about this. Follow the rule of thirds. A third, share posts to promote your business. A third, share posts and ideas of influencers and people in the industry. And a third of personal stories to build your brand. It might not be personal to you, but your brand personality to bring that out to your users. Very important here, respond to all comments and mentions promptly. Very important from an engagement perspective to have somebody that's going to monitor this. You want to have people commenting, giving ratings and reviews. That helps in the algorithms that these networks have. So you want to make sure that you're following up with people. Otherwise, those comments will probably dry up, and the algorithm will start to ding you or penalize you a little bit for not encouraging all of the commentary back and forth. That's what these networks want. They want a lot of interaction. They want a lot of connections to be made, and they reward that in how they show your posts to different people. Don't repost the same message across networks. Again, that goes into choosing your networks to use, which to ignore, but then also what message you're going to send to which network. And so it should be a little bit different because every network is going to have a little bit of a different demographic across it. Use data to know when and how often to post. Look at A/B testing. So you could put a couple of different posts out, same time frame, watch it for the same amount of time. Differ your messaging. You might target differently, and then determine the best use of language or images or whatever you're looking to test. But test your messaging and optimize for the best results. And then measure and results and adjust your strategy as needed, and kind of going through the whole cycle again. For brand awareness and engagement, you should have a consistent presence, pick the right times of day. Definitely use hashtags and mentions. Use influencers, work with influencers, and those are people that have large following online. Try to engage with them, get them talking about your brand. Retweeting. Retweeting is a great way to get additional eyeballs on your Twitter posts, and you can do this by sharing on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. But the concept is the same: is to take somebody else's post that you see, and then you share it with your followers in order to increase the people that can see your brand, and they might be interested in following what you have to say. Thank people for retweets and respond to comments similar to before. Use the search engines inside of these platforms to find consumers. You can find interests and likes and different topics that people are interested in. So there's a lot of research that you can do within these platforms to help you get your message across. And vary your posts, but use images in every post. Images are very very big. And like I said earlier, video is even bigger. So if you can use more and more video in your posts, it's going to help you engage with more people, but it's also going to help you with the algorithms, and they're going to boost your posts and potentially show it to more people. You should always post and share content that's worth engaging with and relevant to your audience. You should encourage readers to comment, like, and share. You should start a Facebook or LinkedIn group. We'll get into that in a minute. Contests and giveaways, polls and questions, optimize headlines, all of these things. Use emojis. Have weekly Twitter chats with your customers. A lot of different things to engage people online. And we'll show some examples of what some brands are doing here in a minute. So I want to dive into several different platforms. It's going to be the big four: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I'm going to show you some examples of what brands are doing right now online in social media to drive traffic and engagement. So we start with Twitter, and I basically pulled up a profile page. And so here we have Talkspace and we have Open Minds. And so your profile page is your social media homepage to the world. This is where your corporate branding and messaging are going to be. This is where you're going to put your mission statement. This is where you're going to put give people your website and where you're located, and all your basic corporate information, public relations information right here. But this is the page that you would set up when you get online and you start to have this presence. You create this page first, put a good foot forward, and people search on you for your brand. This is how they'll find you. This is how they'll get to you, and then go into your tweets and your status updates so that they can follow you. But it's a great place to put your brand and have your namesake out there online. You get a handle, you get a web address. So if you're in a competitive market, make sure that you've got that set up and before somebody else can take it. So there are lots of companies that are named things that are very similar out there. So you want to make sure that you can reserve your Twitter handle, even if you don't use it a lot. You should still use it as a brand presence and set that up for the future. Here's a couple of posts that brands have done on Twitter. These examples are like corporate branding. So you've got a lot of companies did a lot of branding around when the pandemic started, thanking frontline healthcare workers. So Nike had a special shoe made, and they promoted that out to their 36.6 thousand. I'm sorry, that's just the number of tweets that they've made. I don't have the followers here, but you can see that it got 4.6 thousand likes, got 469 comments, was retweeted 1.1 thousand times. So brand awareness, using images, using current events, making things current and relevant, and just if I like the brand of Nike, I'm happy that they're doing these things for healthcare workers to help them in a very hard time, and it helps us all. So it's a good corporate branding message. Talkspace did a very similar thing here, writing actual content and articles, and talking about normalizing mental health care, which is going to be a great thing. So they utilized a Twitter following to send out content and to talk about Talkspace, obviously, to talk about the normalization of healthcare, or I'm sorry, mental health care, especially in this time of need. So again, a good message to put out there from those brands. Here's a couple of other examples, Purple, which is a mattress company utilizing giveaways. It's very popular, and all you need to do is basically like or share, and Twitter will capture that information of who did that for Purple, and they can enter into a giveaway contest very, very, very easily, and it gets that brand spread out. So here you just follow us and retweet to enter. So you retweet them, and that automatically enters you in this giveaway. Jeep did a pretty good Memorial Day campaign here, asking for their customers to take pictures of their Jeeps with flags and different things that would represent Memorial Day, and asked people to submit them to Jeep, and then Jeep used it out on social media. So it's a great way to engage users, get you crowdsourcing using consumers and customers to help provide content, and then the brand Jeep uses that content to go and distribute out across multiple other groups. Shifting over to LinkedIn, also you have the same profile page here. So this is Open Minds profile. Now, LinkedIn obviously is a little bit of a different market, right? You've got business to business leads happening. You've got some employment opportunities happening. Not only do you want to encourage, socially your brand for generating sales and generating consumer interest, but LinkedIn, you use your brand as a social media brand in order to bring in new employees and to help grow the company where you need to grow. So it's got kind of LinkedIn has a dual purpose there, not only to generate engagement with customers, but also engagement with potential employees. And then brands can post here. You see Verizon posting a kind of a corporate message on Verizon's 20th anniversary and celebrating employees. And this is a great way on social media to highlight people, right? People love to be highlighted. Very good employees. This is a great tool for employees to feel good, the ability to make someone, help promote their own personal brand through this. So Caroline and Chetta, I'm sure got a lot of personal mileage out of this, being highlighted by her company Verizon for such a job well done. So it's a very good feel-good story about what a brand can do to help attract employees. It makes you feel good, and the current employees that are there feel good about the company that they work for. But then LinkedIn can also be used for generating business leads as well. So here I've got Roku, which is an online kind of a media streaming service, so they're offering up this e-guide as a downloadable document in exchange for your email address and your name, as adding to their potential prospect lists. So they're kind of giving you this information about how you can use Roku, and then they'll likely capture your data. So they're giving you something, you're giving them something. But this is a good kind of content marketing tactic used in LinkedIn on B2B and B2C opportunities as well. And then you've got the use of Arianna Huffington and using hashtags and promoting another author and another service. But the use of hashtags in campaigns can continue to further all of your distribution across different audiences, and to get the word out to more and more people, not just the people that you follow, but people that are following hashtag Fortune Health or hashtag mental health will also see this post. So you can go well beyond the people that are following Arianna Huffington herself. And then LinkedIn also a great place for creating professional groups. So this is a Marketo user group. Marketo is a kind of a digital marketing tool that is used online to help market different industries. So they have a user group. They have a piece of software. They have a user group. So this helps them engage with their users, with their core users. These are people that join the Marketo user group, probably users of that software. User groups are extremely powerful tools in creating engagement. You can have question and answer, you could have technical assistance, you could have, you can crowdsource, get your customers to help solve technical problems. So your customers have a power user, and that power user might get certified to answer questions to the Marketo user group. So you can augment some of your customer service or support staff by doing some of these things. So that's a company using it. And then there's hashtag online advertising. So LinkedIn has created all of these hashtags around popular topics. And so I follow online advertising along with about 400,000 other people. And then we get these updates from lots of people across the industry that they're posting using the hashtag online advertising. So you can create your own hashtag and start getting it used, or you could search and use some of the tools that LinkedIn has to find, and Twitter as well, to find the most popular hashtags and start using those in your marketing as you start to go out and create these experiences. Facebook started obviously as mostly consumer fun, now is a massive business machine with advertising and brands having presence organically as well as on the paid side. So here again, you've got a profile page. This is the Weather Channel's profile page, putting their their information out there, and then you've got online events that are happening on Facebook. So that this is a live conversation that was marketed with Dr. Fauci across Facebook. And as people are interested, if they check the interested button, that then gets shared out with that network. So my wife was interested in this online event, and I saw it in my feed, so I could be interested in it. And if I clicked interested in it, it would go out to people in my feed, and it starts to just expand with the power of a network, the network effect of Facebook and how big they are. So you can, if you've got a webinar like Open Minds has webinars, if your company has webinars, you could put those out there on Facebook, share them with your followers, ask them if they're interested, and as they get interested, it'll be automatically shared through the network with other people in their friend network. Okay, a lot of brands are doing coupons and different things. This is Propane Taxi. First time that you use them, $10 code, that's about 50% off how much it costs to exchange a tank. And again, they're taking advantage of, nobody wants to go to Home Depot, exchange a tank. It's a great home delivery service now. So their business leads and offers being used on Facebook. And then informational sharing. So the CDC putting out a lot of information about COVID-19, a lot of resource guides, things like that, putting that out there and asking for comments and sharing and likes. And the more and more of that you can do from a brand perspective, the more and more engagement you can get for that brand. And then Facebook has groups as well. So here you've got Behavioral Health Services of Virginia created a group, and then Central Pennsylvania Behavioral Health Practitioners as a group. These can be private groups, public groups. Again, a great way to engage with customers, prospects, constituents, however you define your target audience. Creating a group can be a great way to engage with those people. They belong to the group. They have to join the group. You can improve them, and then you can interact with them. And it's a little, the security that Facebook has set up for groups is a little different than the basic Facebook page. It can be a lot more secure if you want it to be. So a Facebook group can be very private, and you can have ultimate control over that group. So it is, they offer a lot of very good options. So I would heavily encourage, looking into using some of these groups. Instagram, relatively new to my list in the B2B world. and from digital marketing. Started out with just sharing pictures, people sharing pictures, having short little posts. Facebook bought them and has turned this into a marketing machine. So you've got brands selling, brands educating, brands engaging with consumers, both on a sponsored basis where they're advertising, and also where they're creating these organic or natural posts and putting them out there to their followers. The other thing that Instagram does very well is they're creating these stories, and these stories can be sponsored. So here on the left, you've got how to fight anxiety in quarantine, sponsored by 17 magazine. So you've got some content marketing going on. You've got a writer that's writing some content here, sponsored by 17, and then putting it out there on Instagram. Same thing with prioritizing mental health by Mental Health Magazine, creating a story and a whole interactive series along with these. So this is a very powerful new medium. Stories, it's only a few years old. These really taking hold now. And then even other people are doing video stories. So there's a lot of like 30-second clips, and just to get some basic awareness out there about your brand. Instagram, of course, is famous for its images. So here you've got Baked by Melissa, a direct-to-consumer baking company in New York City, using just great imagery. They've got a great photographer. So images on Instagram are extremely effective. You've got this company called Trainual, using celebrities from the TV show The Office. And so this training company really getting creative with a campaign and bringing stars in from The Office. And when you listen to this video, it's his voice from the Office TV series. So a lot of different interesting things happening in Instagram as a very much rising social media network for brands and businesses to reach consumers. Others to watch: TikTok, we talked about earlier. Very small, short snippets of video. Some brands are starting to experiment, but it's very early days. There are security concerns with the app. So they've been noted to have some security concerns. I think that's one of the reasons why brands and businesses haven't adapted it yet. But kids and teenagers and 20-somethings have certainly adapted it as a means to communication. Snapchat, with the little ghost, little kind of instant messaging app that disappears after X amount of time. The messages disappear, so private messaging. And then Pinterest, using pictures to really of interests to really market different products and services, becoming a big thing for brands. I don't know about in healthcare, but it might be something to watch for the future. On the paid side, all of these platforms offer a paid side, very large amount of revenue running through all of these guys. So you can run advertising campaigns inside of LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and because Facebook for Business includes Instagram as well, and you can choose if you want to advertise in Instagram and Facebook or just Facebook. User targeting, extremely important in social media. So these are areas that are constantly changing, is the targeting and user targeting. So in around 2012, Facebook really accelerated their targeting for advertisers down to a lot of the data that they capture in their platforms. And after the 2016 election, Facebook started pulling back on some of the in-depth ability to target. So this is a very fluid area, but basically, you can get down to targeting on geography, demographics, language, interests, keywords, devices, and you can upload your own customer lists to find lookalike audiences. So there's a lot of options to target and find your target audience on all of these social media platforms, but it is an area that's changing all the time. When you do advertise online, when you log in through any of these platforms, they all give you these abilities to kind of create this audience, dive down into your demographics, dive down into locations, interests, things that you think that your audience is interested in. These platforms will go find those people and then deliver your message to them. And then based on how you engage with these platforms to pay for it, they would charge you for a click, or they charge you for an impression, or they charge you for, there's lots of different ways to structure paid advertising accounts. The tracking and reporting, especially when you're paying for anything, extremely important, and you get a lot of data out of these for your money. So clicks, engagements, likes, retweets, everything that basically everything that the user will engage with and click on is reportable, and then you can track that back to your return on investment to make sure that you're spending the money in the right channel and getting it out of it what you're expecting. So really quickly, I did want to touch on reputation management, social media pitfalls, ratings and reviews, comparison rankings, online reviews, and public comments all are out there. You do have to make sure that, whether it's on sites like RateMDs, or it's on Google, or it's on Facebook, you should keep an eye on what people are saying about you and respond and try to fix any issues or problems that are out there. You need to constantly manually monitor websites, sign up for Google alerts that can tell you anytime your brand or a keyword is mentioned online. They send you an automatic, I think you just sign up for it on email. And then when you do get any comments, you do have to take care of it. You do have to address it. You should get back to people in as real time as possible. Really make sure that you're taking care of the people that are taking the time to comment on something that you've done positively and especially negatively. And that will help you in all of these channels and showing that you care about this online presence, and that you're there to make things better and fix any issues that are out there. So there are pitfalls of social media. You do need to make sure that you're avoiding any controversial issues, offensive language. Trolls are everywhere. They're ready to pounce. Don't be tone deaf. You have to understand the context of your posts. Don't post it unless you mean it and you want everyone to know it. And you can delete a tweet, and there are people that tweet and they get deleted, but somebody probably has seen it and it's capturable. So it's out there. So make sure that you know exactly what you're saying. Make sure inside your business who is responsible for social media, and make sure they are someone you trust 100%. So there are all these stories out there, horror stories, and you definitely want to avoid all of these horror stories. So it's really avoid the controversial issue, don't be tone deaf, and don't post it if you don't mean it and you don't want everybody to know it. Those are the most important things to avoid brand risks of social media. Real quick, upcoming future trends, misinformation, fake news, platform policy, really big in the news right now, data security and privacy. Your information is everywhere, so you have to be smart. Live video streaming, I talked about video earlier. Video is huge. Now live video is even bigger on our in terms of social media being streamed live on these platforms. Consolidation and expansion, regulation or contraction. Keep an eye on these things. They certainly may be causing some industry change over the next couple of years. So we covered an amazing amount of ground. Mina, I wanted to find out if we had any questions from the group, and if I could engage with anybody, and if they have any questions for me.
Great. Well, Rob, thank you so much for sharing a wealth of data and the best practices on what I should and should not do on social media. I know our attendees found it very helpful today. We have a few questions that people are sending in by chat. And in the meantime, let me take this question. Let me just ask you this question from Wendy. You shared some really great examples from, Nike and Roku and all the people with a lot of money and a lot of staff, right? But as a behavioral health provider organization, if I am sort of just getting started on the road to upping my social media game here, where do I start? How much money should I invest, and how many staff should I dedicate to this? Do I just start posting? Do I have to create a whole strategy? What would be your advice? What's your how-to starting advice?
Yeah, thank you. I would I would just get started and start dipping your toe in with posting something on Facebook, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. And you might want to start on, the smaller of those is LinkedIn. But depending on, who your customer is, you might choose Twitter or Facebook instead. Don't advertise. So create a brand presence. Doesn't take too long. They have very intuitive screens to start your profile. Upload an image in the background. You put in a little blurb about your what your business is. You put your website address in, if you want contact information, a few other things, and then you've got a brand presence. Then you can start inviting people to your brand. And then you can start posting immediately. And the posting, doesn't have to be. It could be, welcome. You could welcome people as to get started. You could start a conversation. You could ask a question to try to get some discussion going. You could post something. If you have a new white paper, you could put that out there to try to get some distribution. And get people to share it, as long as it's free and you're willing to give that away for free. And then just start seeing what type of response you get. So I'd recommend, you don't need a lot of money, you don't need a lot of staff to start it. Just get started, get out there and see what you get, and then take a little break and measure to see, okay, how many people responded? Who are the people that responded? Did they respond the way that I thought they would? Did they like what I had to say? And then modify from there. And if it looks like it's going to be something that is viable, then I'd think about talking to a staff member to see if they could start managing that for you. And I wouldn't get into advertising until much later down the road, until you have followers and you have you're aware of how best to engage with a social media audience.
And to build a following, Rob, can I ask my consumers, can I tell them that I'm on social media and I want you to follow us, or suggest that they follow us? How do you build up that following?
I think in other channels, so if you've got email as a channel, include you can include a link in any email you send out to your Twitter page to interact with. So you could use your profile page in other channels to try to get people to see your social media presence. So you put it on your website, put it on any emails you send out, put it on brochures, make sure that people know that you have a presence. Whatever means that you're doing in other channels for marketing, I would add your Twitter handle or your LinkedIn address or whatever to those channels and ask them to check out your page, ask them to share, ask them to follow you and like you, and watch it grow from there.
Okay, great, thanks. Corey, I see that you had a question about branding. Did you want to come on and ask Rob directly? You can feel free to unmute. I think you're able to unmute now and turn your camera on.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my question was driven as a content guy who works with long form content. It seems like a pretty big lift to take a lot of information and distill it down. Is there any advice you have for taking a big brand footprint and distilling it to its essentials? Possibly some steps for identifying how an organization wants to be identified in such a small space as offered in social media.
Yeah, I think anytime you've got a complicated message, you would definitely, complicated or in depth, definitely want to try to break that down into maybe different elements, so that you could be able to succinctly explain what your product offering is, what your service is. That is something that, obviously in some of these platforms that you're limited on a number of characters you can use. So you would want to, inside of the platform itself, make sure you've got a very succinct message, and then utilize a link into your website to go deeper on anything there. And then you might even want to break that down into different buckets to attract possibly different types of people into that same overall big meaty topic, and breaking it down into 5 different subtopics, and try to get people coming in different from different directions, from different creatives, basically, or posts, in order to come in and break that down, make it a little bit easier and more succinct to digest.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Corey, for coming on. I hope that was helpful. And just another question. Actually, I want to thank Wendy for asking this question, because it's, I guess, something that's on all of our minds. But Wendy wants to know, Rob, if a question is, or if a negative comment is posted on our social media channel, maybe a consumer who was unhappy, somebody who is being critical of us, whether accurately or not, do I take that comment down, or do I publicly address it on my Facebook or any social media channel?
I mean, I think you have to. I think you have to address it with the person, the commenter. Now, it's a fine line. There are a lot of things that probably are not addressable. So you want to be careful not to be dragged into an off-topic conversation. If it's a product problem that, the product doesn't work, bad customer service, that's one thing. And you should address those, because it will, you should encourage a private chat or an email through your customer service channels, or whatever channel you would have to address that. But you should get back to that person in the social media platform and address it. But there's also a fine line between people that are wanting, I use the word trolls, they want to cause chaos and give you a hard time, and you have to know when that discussion is not fruitful to take place. So there is a fine line to walk there, but I would certainly definitely try to engage in all of them, but you might find that some people are just trying to pull you into some different sort of a discussion that you probably don't want to be involved in. Be careful with that.
Thanks, Rob. Do you have any tips, Dell wants to know, on tying your social media strategy into your overall organizational strategy? How do you go about doing that? What tips would you have?
I think that it is, the social media strategy should be part of your marketing strategy. So you have a marketing strategy. This is another marketing channel to utilize. So that if your corporate strategy is to, grow the number of new customers you have, right? So you're going to have all of your corporate divisions are going to come into that strategy, tied together to hit that goal. Your marketing group should, as part of that goal, have a social media strategy that will help achieve that goal. And in marketing, social media would be one channel, email is going to be another channel, direct mail is another channel. So I would say that this should be, the social media strategy should be involved in the corporate strategy, and specifically included as a channel in the marketing strategy.
Great, thanks, Rob. So I would just encourage our attendees who are still on the line, if you want to ask Rob a question directly, just send us a chat message, and when we see it there, we can unmute you to ask the question. If you would prefer to just prefer that I ask Rob for you, just text it in, use the question mark button on the right of your screen. So we'll give it a minute, and if there are no more questions, or as we wait, Rob, I would ask you, so do you have any wrap-up comments? Like, what would be your top 3 takeaways for, I'm going to get started on my social media strategy now, so what would be your
top 3 would be, number 1 would be just get started. Number 2 would be experiment and monitor. So try different things and then watch the results and get the metrics. And then the third thing I would say is the cautionary, just make sure that whatever you post, whatever you put out there is, that is what you intend to say, that is what you're going to stand behind, and that is what you want the world to see potentially forever.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, thank you, Rob. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions come in. Would like to encourage our attendees, if you have anything that you think about, or as you are executing your social media strategy, if you would like to talk further and get some advice from Rob, just email us, openminds@openminds.com. We'll get you connected, and you can have a one-on-one session where Rob will be happy to walk you through some of the ins and outs and how to operationalize the things he's been talking about. So do feel free to be in touch with us if you have any questions after this as well. And Rob, I want to thank you for taking the time and for educating us all, and for the words of encouragement as well as caution about social media. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, I am going to close out now.